Hello and welcome everyone to an all-new installment of Super Suits, the internet comic book show where we take a closer look at some of the most famous lawsuits in the history of superheroes and comic books. Hey, did you all see that new Guardians of the Galaxy teaser? Of course you did. You know, it got me thinking about the last movie, and in particular the hilarious stinger with Seth Green as Howard the Duck. And because the newest Howard comic reached its end just recently, I figured now was the time to give the Duck the center stage he's always deserved. You see, whether you knew it or not, Howard the Duck has always been a lightning rod for controversy and the occasional piece of litigation. Even from the very beginning, this foul-mouthed fowl who seemed to always be on the edge of an existential breakdown was ruffling people's feathers. Geez, Joel, try and cram a couple more bird puns in there, why don't you? You see, around the time the character was first created, the Disney Corporation took some serious umbrage with how much Howard looked like their much more kid-friendly Donald Duck. This never did actually go to trial or anything, but Marvel, fearing a possible lawsuit from the Mouse House, changed Howard's overall design and made him put on some pants to help differentiate him from Donald and all those other pantsless ducks we have out there in fiction. You can understand why this particular story becomes kind of hilarious in hindsight when we stop and consider that the Disney Corporation now is the owner of Marvel Comics. Speaking of Howard the Duck facts, and because this is an election year, at least for my neighbors to the south, I personally hail from the frozen land of Canada in case you didn't know, but Howard the Duck actually ran for president once. It's true, during his initial run, creator Steve Gerber, who we will be covering a lot in this video, had a story wherein Howard became the nominee for the, get this, all-night party. Marvel took the joke so far they even printed up some campaign buttons, which, geez, you gotta figure are huge collector's items right now. The great legacy here is that the fictional Duck actually did manage, by all accounts, to get some actual write-in nominations. But hey, the name of the show is Super Suits, isn't it? And I'm here to talk about an actual lawsuit, right? Not just bombard you with interesting facts. You gotta understand, there really was a moment in time there where characters like Howard the Duck were really quite popular. Not only did he succeed after spinning out of the pages of Giant-Sized Man-Thing, yeah, you heard that right, Giant-Sized Man-Thing, Gerber, as we'll discover, was quite the puckish rogue, which is a nice way of saying he was something of a proto-troll. But there really was a moment there in the 70s in American comics when Howard was riding high. He had a comic strips for our younger fans out there were short comics that you got in the paper. A paper is that thing that people used to read for news, you know, before the internet. Where was I again? Man, I keep getting sidetracked this episode. Oh yeah, Howard, he was doing really good, and Marvel planned a whole multimedia blitz character, including toys and other such merchandise, as well as that one very, very awful movie of which we will not speak. Too bad things had turned sour between the company and Howard's creator, Steve Gerber, who, for the record, was a real old-school comic creator, the likes of which you just don't really see anymore. In 1978, Gerber left Marvel over their plans for his creations, and by all account, it was a total mess. But Gerber would just not stay quiet about the whole thing. He vowed to take Marvel to court over creators' rights, and you gotta keep in mind that at this point in comic book history, this was huge. No creators sued the major companies like this. In fact, Gerber took his crusade a step further by teaming up with comic legend Jack Kirby to create a new character, Duke the Destroyer Duck, for the sole purposes of raising money for his legal fight with Marvel. FYI, in the story of the book, Duke was trying to save his friend, another duck who was being held hostage by an evil corporation. Wow, what a massive pair of cojones on this guy, am I right? Duke is actually a huge, interesting story in and of itself, and oh, would you look at that, Scott made a video on this very topic, how convenient, be sure to go watch it, but only after this. Eventually, Marvel would attempt to placate Gerber and get him back on their side. He agreed to some of their licensing terms, which allowed them to make their 86 movie, and damn it, I thought we weren't going to speak about this, but when it came time to write the character again, he would only agree to do so if he was allowed to erase and mock any new Howard canon he objected to. Gerber wouldn't get his way, but in the 90s, he quietly resurrected his version of Howard the Duck for his own run on She-Hulk. In 2001, Gerber would once again return to Marvel to pen some Howard the Duck stories for the more adult-oriented Marvel Max line, although if you watched that Scott video, you would know that Howard was actually a clone. In fact, this story even goes a little bit deeper. You see, Gerber wanted to redesign Howard for his new Max run, but he couldn't because of the whole Disney thing from earlier on. Gerber responded to these restraints in classic Gerber fashion, by which I mean he viciously mocked it by having Howard dress up as different animals throughout that entire run. The first of which, might I add, was a mouse. Steve Gerber would sadly pass away in 2008, which means he never got to see his character on the big screen for the second time. He would, however, leave behind him one trailblazing legacy and one whopper of a supersuit. So there you have it, the story of a little duck who caused some very big trouble for a lot of people. And with that, there's the sound of the gavel, which means my time is almost through. But before I go, for more educational superhero videos, be sure to subscribe to Scott and NerdSync. And if you want to see more of my work, by all means, check me out over on the Cape Joel channel. I'm almost to 10K in subs, so if you see a sub button just like, anywhere on screen, you should probably hit it.